And we are back live with episode 2 of season 2 of Standard
Wow.
Deviation podcast. And I'm here with Simo, my co host. Simo, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good. This is episode 2. We are now officially grown up. We're no longer a one-hit wonder, so we actually have to start doing this seriously. I'm super nervous. We have an actual guest here today. It's not just us. We have to be professional. Juliana, we have to be professional. It's not easy.
It's going to be hard for me, but I'll try.
Yeah. Or we don't, well, let's put it like this. We don't have to be professional. We have to appear professional. I think that's easier.
Yes. So from this moment on, for everyone watching or listening, me and Simo will appear
Yes.
professional.
We will have proper analytics decor. So how are you? You survived the mountain. You came back from Hungary in one piece, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. And so, for those of you that are listening, we're talking about Superweek Analytics Summit that happens every year in Hungary. But Simo, you should tell people more about Superweek because you are part of the furniture there.
Oh, yeah, I am on the walls. Super Week, I think we're in year 11 now. It's just a wonderful conference, event, gathering happening. It's 1 week of analytics nerdery in Hungary. There's a nice spa hotel. It's usually reserved just for the event. I've been going there for a while. For me, it's always like one of the most stressful events of the year because it's physically and mentally draining to be surrounded by people who are as passionate or even more passionate about the world of data. And every time I come back home from there, I'm either violently sick or just completely exhausted. And I don't want to have anything to do with analytics for a long time. Like I need a detox. But this was your first time. How was it for you?
It was great. Actually, I arrived on Wednesday. I didn't
Yeah.
come from the beginning because work. For me, like the highlight, besides the event, was meeting my team at Media Monks. We were, I think, 20 people probably from Media Monks. And it was my first time meeting everyone in person, besides Andreas Patrickson.
Yeah.
And I actually came to the conclusion that they are using Andreas Patrickson as a lure inside Media Monks because that's the employee that everyone meets for the first
Oh,
time.
wow.
And I'm like, okay, so he's a Swedish guy. They're using him as lure. He's neutral, he's fun, but he's also calm.
Yeah.
So that's what they're using to lure people in.
Yeah.
But it was great to meet the team. It was nerve wracking to do my presentation,
Mm.
but I think it went pretty
Yeah.
well. And it was great. Very good talks, very good energy, very good food.
What I'm most impressed about is there are people who have been in this industry far longer than I have, and they're still like doing everything. There are 5 days there. There are pre-parties, post-parties. They're till the midnight hours, talking, chatting, going to every talk, just gushing about data. And I just like our guest today. We're going to talk about this with him. But how do you maintain that level of excitement once you've been working in an industry for 15 years? Like, how the hell do you do it? I'm completely washed up. Like I get so burned out just from 24 hours, and these people are there for 100 hours. It's incredible. I don't get it. Like, what's
And
the
maintain
secret?
the same level of excitement and enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, where do people get the stamina from? And both physically and mentally, like, how
Yeah.
do you maintain excitement about an industry that you've been working in for so long? It's just mind-boggling to me, and I'm really interested in exploring this idea.
But before we talk to our guest about this, since we're talking about the events, I was thinking a lot because you see, there's a very big wave of people coming into the industry and they're trying to get a job in an agency or inside the company as a digital analyst or a measurement marketer. And I just realized that doing courses and learning stuff is not enough, or applying is not enough. I think going to this type of events, Super Week, Measurecamps in general, like going to this event really helps you meet people and learn from other people, and it gives you like some sort of different confidence to put yourself out there versus just the application. I don't think just applying to jobs works that much anymore.
Mm.
And the value of meeting people in this community and learning from them and building with them, and just by being on measures, like you can learn so
Mm.
many things. This event really made me think, and I've been advising people lately that are trying to get into digital analytics, just go to the events, just go on online events or webinars and just go there, show up, say hi to people, and it definitely helps you a lot and will help your career a lot. I was telling Peter O'Neill on Slack the other day, if all the measure camps that I went to actually owe my job to those, because I met people there, then I met somebody else and
Yeah.
ended up in the role that I have right now. And that's something that I want to advise everyone. Just look up for these events, go to them, say hi to people. Everyone is so nice in this community. No one is going to tell you to fuck off.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you're an asshole, but that's another story. But generally, nobody's going to tell you to get lost. People are super, super nice
Yeah.
and supportive. And also, I want to give you and Krista a shout because of the fireside chat, because you guys were very nice to me then. And it was a very
Yes.
emotional moment for me.
But what happened at that fireside chat stays in
It
that
stays
fireside
in that
chat. If you want to know
fireside
what
chat.
happens, you got to come next year.
To Superweek. Talking about events, we have Measurecamp Helsinki, right?
Oh, yeah. The first time in Helsinki,
Tell
the
me.
wild north. Yeah, Juliana mentioned Peter O'Neill, which leads us to talk about Measurecamp. He's the founder of the concept. Measurecamp is an unconference that's been going around also, I think, for 11, 12 years now. And it started as a London event, and now it's global. It's a very lovely event. It's always on a Saturday, so people actually have to want to go there. It's not like it's part of your actual work time. And it's like Super Week, it's a chance to meet friends and network. But most of all, for anybody who's ever wanted to consider talking in public, like doing a public talk, a presentation, and doesn't feel like they're polished enough or prepared enough, Measurecamp is a really great incubator for that, because the idea of the unconference is that anybody can talk about whatever they want. You just reserve a slot on the board and do the talk. And if you're nervous about presenting by yourself, you can do a panel discussion, you can do a one-on-one interview, whatever you want. Like, the format is up to you. But for many people, it's been the stepping stone in the industry. And we are trying this out in Helsinki now. I'm not in the organizing team, but Simmer might be sponsoring the event. And I know that Juliana, you're a bouncer there, or were you like,
I'm a bouncer at the
yeah, she's a
door.
bouncer there. So Helsinki is quite remote, of course. So it might be difficult for people to find it on the map. But if you buy a plane ticket, I'm sure the plane will find its way. And it's a lovely city. It's not maybe the best time of the year to visit because it's going to be dark and wet and gloomy. But the people are lovely, and you'll get your taste of what Finnish culture is if you've never been to Finland. And I'm sure that anybody who has the chance to travel will have a great time. But tickets are usually gone really fast. So it's a good idea to
So fast.
follow the Measurecamp Twitter and on LinkedIn, and we'll share those in the video notes, of course, to make sure that you don't miss a ticket release.
And the gin, don't forget about the Finnish gin, is the best.
Oh yeah, we have Napue, which is our number one gin. We have a lot of good alcohol in Finland. I think it's so dark in the winter that we need the alcohol for some reason. But yeah, Napue gin is for sure something to experience. So if you're a fan of gin, you're gonna like it.
And the music is great. There's a lot of pubs in Helsinki, which I hope I will go with people coming. I'm waiting on people. I'm trying to convince them to go to pubs to listen to God
Yeah.
and that metal with me because I love those pubs. But so you're saying that Simmer is also sponsoring, right?
Yeah, we're all over the place now. Okay. Nice segue. That was cheesy. Do you want me to do the ad now?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's time for our periodic Simmer ad, which I have prepared just as well as last time. All I want to say about Simmer is that we're an online course platform. We do courses on technical marketing, and we would love it if you take some of our courses. If anything that me and Juliana talk about here tickles the right synapses in your brain, then we might have a course for you. And if you use the coupon code DEVIATE, that's DEVIATE, you'll get a discount from your purchases. So check out teamsimmer.com. Can we slide the music back on? Because
This is the cheesiest thing I could find.
yeah, I feel like I
But
could be riding a motorcycle on an airplane script right now.
I was actually looking for cheesy sound
Yeah,
effects in 70s.
that was really good.
No, but I want to ask you because people were asking me on LinkedIn if there's any new content coming from
Oh,
Simmer.
yeah. So right now I'm working on a kind of a little course around CSS selectors, actually, because from the JavaScript course that we did, we have a lesson there about CSS selectors, but it's just about the JavaScript methods.
Yeah.
And I got some feedback that people want to just dig into those selectors more. So I'm doing a kind of an additional course about that. That should hopefully be out in Q1. I'm looking at the calendar and oh my God, there's not
Oh.
that many days left anymore, but we'll see. I'll try to get it out before Q1. Then we have some other courses in mind. One that I really want to do, and this is something we hopefully are going to cover in this podcast, but I just had this idea at Super Week actually, is I want to do a course on like technical writing.
Hmm.
Like, how do you write documentation for developers? How do you write code samples? How do you document the data layer? Just general, what tools are best for this? How do you do this in Google Sheets? How do you do this in Visual Code? Over the years of blogging about this stuff, I've noticed that I'm still learning about technical writing myself. And I've had the fortune of working with some people who are really good technical writers. And I always thought that it's just about writing code and writing some specs. But then when I look at their editorial content, it's just amazing. It's mind-boggling what an interesting discipline that is. So we'll see. We have a lot of stuff in mind and we're taking it day by day. We're not stressing out too much about anything, which is the Simmer way. And maybe someday we'll have our own Simmer conference where everybody can take it easy with us and just not do anything.
Festina lente, it was that Latin saying, celebrate peacefully, slowly.
Yes.
I
Yes.
like the fact that you're doing a CSS selector course. It's going to be
Mhm.
very valuable for absolutely everyone in digital marketing. You don't have to be a technical marketer to learn that. Also, a growth marketer, product marketer,
Mhm.
knowing how to extract the CSS selector. And I know people think, oh my God, it's so easy, because I was one of those people that thought, yeah, I'm just going to right click and get the
Yeah.
CSS.
Copy
Yeah,
paste.
it doesn't work like that.
No, yeah, it's an interesting. CSS selectors are interesting. It's like the ukulele
The
and
ukulele.
the mouth organ. Like it's easy to make sounds. It's easy to write a proper selector chain, but like mastering how to build it in an optimized way so that it doesn't break when the site is updated, and just having it as efficient as possible. That's where the trick lies. So we're going to talk a lot about optimizing those selectors. Like you said, it's easy in the developer tools. You just right click an element and just copy the selector. But what you usually get as a result is this super long selector chain, which has a million different links, and every one of those links will become weak if the site is updated. So we're definitely going to be talking about that. And CSS selectors are like universally useful. It's not just for analytics. It's not just for web design, but also if you're configuring a search engine optimization crawler, if you're doing screaming frog analysis, if you're doing anything in GTM, you can use CSS selectors in your triggers. So it's just like regular expressions, actually. It's like a meta language that's almost programming language independent, and you just need to kind of, well, you don't need to know that stuff. There are more important things in the world, but it's very useful for a technical marketer to learn that stuff.
Absolutely. And also in experimentation and A/B testing and implementing tests and different
Oh,
things
yeah,
like
for
that.
sure. For sure. Like, what is A/B testing other than trying out different elements on the web page? Well, okay, I'm diminishing it quite a bit, but in a nutshell, like you're looking at switching elements, adding new content to the web page. And for that, CSS selectors are useful. But speaking of experimentation, which like it was a really good segue because we might have just someone joining us in a bit. I think he's in the lobby already waiting to be let on, and he's going to be joining us to talk about experimentation. Who do we have on today, Juliana?
Today we have Ton Wesseling from Online Dialogue in Netherlands. Ton Wesseling for me is like, how can I put this? He is the person that taught almost everyone in experimentation and conversion optimization A/B testing, because it's true. Everyone learned how to A/B test from Ton Wesseling. Ever since conversion optimization started to be a thing from 2010, I think Tan was one of those people that evangelized experimentation, evangelized A/B testing. And the thing is that with Tan, he's doing it with so much excitement all the time. I've never seen Tan down, never
Mhm.
seen Tan having a bad day.
Yeah,
Or like, he is a very generous person,
indeed.
very kind, and Tan is that guy.
Great. So I think we'll have him on right now. Is there anything we want to ask him in particular? I want to talk about that excitement part because that was really neat.
Yeah,
I want to know, how does he keep going? He's always so happy and he's still so enthusiastic. I envy him for that because I feel like the enthusiasm is slipping from my fingers. But maybe if I talk to him and talk to you, get some of
we'll
it back.
get you back,
Yeah.
resuscitate you.
All right.
Let's have Tan whistling. Ah.
Woo! There he is, Mr. Ton Wesseling. How are you?
Thank you, I'm good. And now suddenly feel like LeBron James being applauded after reaching an amazing score.
Did you
I'm
reach it
doing
as
great.
well?
No, I have not reached whatever 38,000,
Yeah.
83,000, whatever points in the basketball.
Yeah.
I'm not tall enough.
Yeah, that was amazing. I actually watched that game. I have a subscription to NBA. I watched that game because I wanted to be part of history. But on the other hand, if you're watching, what are you going to tell your kids? I watched it online when LeBron James scored his. Yeah, it was amazing. He's my age, and he's like the most athletic person on the planet. Well, he spends $1 million on his fitness and his body a year, but he goes out every night and does that kind of stuff. And I feel like if I take like 5 step extra, I have to be in bed for 2 days because I'm so excited.
It's a different skill of playing basketball. I saw LeBron play back in
Nice.
Madison Square Garden in New York when they played the New York Knicks. I think 5 or 6 years ago when I traveled for an event to the States, I was able to go to a game when he was still playing at Cleveland.
Yeah.
And if you watch a player like that on the pitch,
Yeah.
it's such a big difference.
Yeah.
Then the other, no offense to the other, they are good.
Yeah.
But this is like another level. So it was fascinating to be a spectator of a live game of LeBron James, indeed.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that our generation can say that about Michael Jordan. Like we saw him in his heyday, and now that you've seen LeBron, that's going to be a thing in the discussion of being one of the 2 greatest players of all time in the NBA. So it's pretty cool to say that you've seen him live. It's maybe cooler than anything else you've achieved in your life.
I love the dedication because this guy is now a professional basketball player for whatever 18 years or something, 20 years, and he still likes the game.
It's crazy,
which is fascinating because they play like 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, but he still loves it.
And this kind of lets us slide into a discussion because you are like the LeBron James of conversion optimization, and you've been doing this for a long time. Maybe you might want to tell at some point how long you've been doing this, because it's probably a very big number that some people might be ashamed of, but you're still excited. You're still enthusiastic. Every single time I see you at an event and we do our little selfie attack, you seem just as giddy about what you do for a living as any other time I've seen you. So how do you do it? How do you stay excited about this industry?
I've always liked to solve puzzles, play mystery games, find the answer to something. And to me, optimizing websites, apps, email, whatever, could even be a restaurant menu. I see this as a challenge. It's almost like an escape room. We know there is a better solution. There must be. And then you try to gather evidence. And gathering evidence is fun. And you work together with a group of people. And you have new puzzle parts, and then you try to fit them in each other, and at some point it's working, and then the whole team is cheering. And this is also a real rapid, fast approach. It's not like you have to wait for 6 months or something, like a big redesign. And also, you will see the results. You work in small pieces. It's like going on a roller coaster, just continues and continues. It brings so much energy.
Yeah, like you're talking about the actual puzzle solving, but there's so much more to it. There's working with clients, there's organizing industry events. Like, totally get the puzzle solving part. I think that's the part that keeps the enjoyment for me as a programmer, as a developer. But what about everything else? Like you've been creating events, you're going to events, you're working with a million different customers over the years. How do you keep doing that?
It's probably part of my DNA. I really don't really know the answer. I like to be creative and try new stuff, experimentation mindset, I don't know. And I enjoy people, and I enjoy happy people. So running events, then after all the hard work for months preparing, and then you walk around during the event and you see so many people smiling and having fun and meeting old friends, meeting new friends, and then being the enabler of that gives so much joy and energy. So I can again spend another 4 or 5 months preparing the next event. So I think in the end, it's you're building stuff. That's also why I love the web. And finally, back in the old days, 95, 96, we were able to create websites on our own. So we didn't need a publisher or a factory or whatsoever. We could just create stuff and people could use it. I think that's still something I really like. I like to create stuff. And then sometimes people don't like it. Hey, it's an experiment. And sometimes people really like it. And of course, then if you can also even combine your living, because I'm always sounding like an artist, but if you combine your living with organizing this kind of stuff, doing this kind of work, or training teams as clients, it's just so much fun combination. Even if I would have already enough money to stop working, I would still do exactly the same work.
Yeah, it's a pretty good litmus test that you actually enjoy what you're doing. I can't actually remember exactly how we met, but there are a few people in the industry who I'm totally indebted for when it comes to kickstarting my own career. And in 2014, I think it was early 2014, Online Dialogue, your company, organized a workshop for GTM in Amsterdam. And we also did a small presentation as well. So it was a presentation and a workshop. And I just remember that it was one of the first times I was actually invited somewhere. And I feel like that, for me, that gave me a lot of confidence in getting things started. But we also had a lovely walk around Amsterdam. You showed me the city, not the dodgy areas, of course, but we took a look at the dodgy areas as well, but we didn't dive in. That was a long time ago. And Online Dialogue, what's happened since?
Back then, 2014, because I also try to remember when we first met. It could even be Measurecamp before that in London. But Online Dialogue it started 2009, but it just started as I was a contractor back then. And I met my current business partner, Bart Schutz, consumer psychologist. And we learned that, oh, you have all this consumer psychology knowledge, but you are applying this at a web design agency. So you're not testing. And I'm just testing a lot of things because my background's analytics. But, oh, wow, your knowledge about how the brain functions is really fascinating because I'm just optimizing usability tweaks or something. So we wanted to combine this, but we also learned as contractors that we're not really able to move the needle at projects at clients because we were just contractors. So then we just fantasized, okay, but what if we could create a company, design a logo, get a good PO box number, a decent phone number, create a website, and just tell we are a company, even we are just two contractors? Would that get us jobs where we are more in control? And yes, it did. So it's like almost fake it till you make it. And then we started onboarding more contractors. And back when we met in 2014, we made a shift. I think we just made a shift in hiring normal employees because we grew quite fast with contractors, but we hit the limits of availability of the time of contracts because they were not working for us. So if we took on big projects, it was hard to really control the hours of the contractors because they have other clients also. But in the beginning, we didn't want to take the risk of having employees and being responsible for the bread and mortgage and so on. But in 2014, I think we just hired our first normal employees. Since then, that grew, and we're now a 25 people company. Nice. I think we've been this size for 3 or 4 years now. I like this size because we can have a management team that runs the company and we can afford to pay them. So we don't have to worry about daily operations and so on, because I love to work. I love people, but financial stuff, paying salaries in time, having human resource meetings, there are all sorts of stuff that needs to be managed, which is not typically something that gets me out of bed in the morning. So we luckily now have a management team, we can afford it, but we are still a niche boutique in optimization and experimentation. But it's changed a lot. I think back in those days, we were hired to optimize the conversion rates of mostly a website. We have a website, we want to have more transactions, less spend per customer. And that shifted over the years to companies understanding, oh, wow, if you apply a continuous process of optimization, it's almost like implementing better decision-making and learning about my user behavior. And that's really valuable knowledge for an organization. So that's something we need to build ourselves, not give it to an agency, outsource it. No, this is a core thing of our team, of our products. So we shifted more and more in helping those companies, building up a experimentation and validation structure, culture, process, train them, give them some resources, but really build this inside those companies. So I'm not sure if we are a consultancy company now. We still do a lot of work. So we were like somewhere in between niche boutique, agency, consultancy, helping you out with experimentation.
That's super interesting, Tan, and it segues into what I had in mind. I'm always coming with the questions. But you were speaking about building the culture of experimentation is like a company-wide mindset, and it's not something, the experimentation mindset, you cannot expect to outsource that to an agency. You have to have it as a client or company. So I'm wondering, what is actually this experimentation culture? How would you define it? Is it alignment between the goals of the company? Is it alignment between teams? Is it alignment between everyone? Like, how does Ton Wesseling define experimentation culture?
And the interesting thing, I don't know. I don't know for sure. Because I thought I knew 3 or 4 years ago when we started pivoting more to helping with building experimentation culture and started the Experimentation Culture Awards. And then I was really confident, like in the beginning of the Dunning-Kruger effect, like I know what experimentation culture is about and we can build this in your company. But I don't know now. So I'm over the peak and fell down into the valley of despair. But I will climb to the plateau of productivity at some point. So if you ask me in 3 or 4 years from now, I probably will give a different answer. I think my biggest insight now is that you cannot force a experimentation culture on people. And also the definition of what we, conversion optimizers, believe what an experimentation culture is totally different than what a product owner thinks experimentation culture is. And if you really take the time to listen, or like me, have failed 4 times to convince them, you will also understand they do have an experimentation mindset, but they have a different way of working. They have these agile sprints that they need to push stuff live. And I think most companies do have an experimentation culture, experimentation mindset, because all these people want to grow, they want to move on, they love to try new things. And of course, only if it's a really aggressive company, not allowed to make mistakes, then you have an issue, of course. But if you are allowed to make mistakes and try stuff and fail and learn, the mindset and the culture is already there. But then you have to create better decision making. An experimentation culture is freely trying everything, but a better experimentation culture is making better decisions. So use data to prioritize and to really optimize what you're working on, and when you push something live, to validate it. I think there's a technical experimentation culture, which is more in the engineering pipeline, where you have validation, and there is a more business experimentation approach. To give you one anecdote on the business experimentation approach, I always try to sell experimentation and validation as a risk reducing solution. The teams can work on whatever they want to do, and when they launch it, it will be validated with an A/B experiment, so you know the outcome, and you can roll back if it's hurting your business, or you can just implement it if it's good for you. But then two managers told me on more senior levels in companies, I don't want my people to take less risk. I want them to take more risk. They have to open up. They need to experiment more and take bigger bets. And then, yes, it's really good that you validate those bets. That's amazing that we can do that now. So at least we're not hurting the business. But business experimentation is more a broader mindset, being open to try anything, cliches like outside of the box. And then the engineering, technical stuff is more like really embedding better decision making. So I'm now doubting if you can talk about the experimentation culture. Maybe it's more an experimentation structure. In the Netherlands, it's quite usual because as a boss in the Netherlands, you're not telling your employees what to do. Because if you tell them what to do, they will leave the company.
How strongly do you feel that should every single company have something like that in their DNA? Or is there a type of company where you wouldn't even try to deploy that kind of a thinking?
I think it depends on the state of your product and services. If you're in economic terms a cash cow, you know you're the market leader, you know the market is dying, you didn't do enough innovation to come up with new companies, or you created new products, but they're in a separate entity, then you really want to focus on getting more money now on the product that's called the cash cow. Yeah. And then it doesn't make sense to explore more. You just need to win more and be structured, and everybody has to listen the same mindset. I think that's the end of product stage, but also in the beginning with innovation, some people that really believe in that new product. So even if it's a big risk and some data is telling you that it could be a wrong decision, only with true faith and dedication and belief, it will come to life at least a minimal viable product, and then you can use the data. So I think in those early stages and end stages, it doesn't really make sense to really apply this free open structure of we can try everything and then decentralized decision making. I think that in between, once you have something good that has a product market fit, and you want to scale up fast, but not fixated on this one solution, because maybe you have to come up with new solutions, get user feedback, optimize it whatsoever. This experimentation culture mindset is really helping in growing on to become a better or bigger or whatever you're striving for organization.
This reminds me of your talk at Superweek. And you opened the door to a lot of things that happen in the analytics world that I'm discovering myself. And I often feel like experimentation and data live in isolation, when experimentation should be fueled by data, should be fueled by the analytics effort in the company. And I guess, and a lot of people after your presentation that I talked to, they were wondering, how do you build a bridge between experimentations and digital analytics and the data team? Because I feel like there's not a common effort that goes on. Like, yeah, we're going to set up GTM and GA4. Here's the report. Here's the implementation. You as a CRO or whatever strategist, all the names that we have for this role in experimentation, you just have to do it on your own. Like, you don't have the support of the data team. And listening to your presentation, I even felt that more, because that's something that also I would like to do, because I was talking to you about this after the presentation. So a lot of people were asking, like, how do you build that bridge between digital analytics and experimentation in an agency, for instance, but also inside a company?
Good question. It was great to be back at Superweek again. It reminds me of John Lovett's talk, one of the industry veterans in analytics. He spoke about data products. That on itself was not new to me, but the way he really explained it over and over again was an interesting take on how to work with analytics in companies. Because a data product can be an interactive dashboard with insights or a report or whatsoever. It's just a different name. There's nothing new to it. But once you state it as a product, then you have people that create this specific product or dashboard, and you have users that are using the product. So even inside a company, inside an agency where optimization people have to work together with data people, once they start talking about that they're delivering products and then there's someone building and someone being the end user, then you really have to listen to the end user. Oh, but how are you really using this info? Does it generate insights for you that you can really use and apply and take actions on? Oh, if not, then we need to optimize the product because then we're not delivering a good product. And for some reason, those discussions never go like this when it's just a dashboard or a report or data available. So I really liked the take, and we'll try this also in projects I'm working on, to name it more a product if you deliver something. That could be an interesting take. But to bridge the gap, for some, I didn't quite understood why so many people at Superweek believe there's a big gap. But my working area, of course, Netherlands focused. I do have some international clients. But with most of these companies, optimization started out of analytics. Yeah. So there's a natural combination already. Like the data people decided that they needed to do more with data, so they need to validate stuff, so they started implementing A/B testing solutions. Unluckily, in the beginning, data was more part of marketing and not products. So it's fully focused on optimizing marketing, experimentation, better landing pages, and so on. Now it's shifting to products and product experimentation. And there is some gap, but in the end, most companies that are more mature, where I'm able to look at the insights, the teams responsible for data quality are always under the same manager as the team responsible for the product of experimentation or the experimentation hub or centralized center of excellence. The analytics center of excellence, if you have one, or the data center of excellence, and the experimentation center of excellence, they're in the same silo, if you can talk about silo. To me, it's quite common that these teams work together. I think the gap is bigger on the qualitative research part. The ones that do surveys, user testing, do user interviews, create market segments, and so on. There's a huge gap between data optimization and that specific input, but it's not really easy to measure this kind of stuff. So I see more silos over there. So I'm not witnessing a really big gap between analytics and optimization. Yeah. But then again, Juliana, you're now being at a really large agency that's being built up by several acquisitions. I can imagine that you have some huge silos in there.
For me right now, for instance, when it comes to technical implementation and tools, clients understand it in a way. And I saw this Casey Kazarkov thing, like you don't need to know how a microwave works to buy it or to use it. But the thing is, when you are selling things like qualitative research or heuristic analysis mixed with quantitative data analysis, people are like, why do we need that? Because it's more than just numbers. It's a UX thing, it's a website thing, it's a usability thing. I feel like it's a harder sell. For instance, when I was listening, Tim Wilson had a great presentation about time series analysis and so on. But while he was doing it, I could ask myself in the presentation, how the fuck do I sell this? This is great.
It's a good question. I saw the Medium post that Doug Hall posted, I think yesterday or this morning even, with the same question. And I think that's an agency issue. And you've been on that side too, because in the time we were mostly we optimize your website. So we will bring you more transactions, leads, whatsoever. Then the focus of the client hiring us was give us results. So if we said we need more time to take a deep dive, consumer psychological deep dive to really better understand your users, which takes 3 months now, but that it will lead to better outcomes in 9 months from now. And so it will cost you more money now, but it will bring you more money in 9 months from now. That was almost always like a hard no. We need the money now. It's a short-term focused. And also some companies are just hiring agencies for the resources and don't want them to think.
It's everywhere. Like it's all over the digital marketing industry, which has really kind of pissed me off, is that obviously we have interests. Julia and I are maybe more interested in the business of data and analytics. You might have a focus on CRO. Then there are search engine optimization is another one where there's just different incentive models. Like CRO is often seen as short-term gains. We just do these tests and our products will be instantly better. SEO is seen as something that, okay, we'll invest a bit now and then we'll have just a steady climb from now onwards. And analytics, for me, this is the biggest pet peeve. Analytics is seen as a product. Like we sell analytics. That makes no sense. You're selling a byproduct. You're selling like a side effect of what is actually being measured. So that's always been the problem, is that we have incentives baked into producing data or producing results rather than looking at the holistically, like we have a product or a service. It needs good data quality. It needs an experimentation approach. It needs to have organic reach. It needs to have a solid like paid marketing plan. It needs to have a solid design team, multidisciplinary, agile team. So there are all these little things. And I think that I've seen the same as Juliana, like CRO and analytics don't necessarily mix, especially in companies that have just started with experimentation. Like they install Google Optimize, rest in peace, and they install that, and they're just tunnel visioning, looking at the goals that they set in that tool, rather than exporting that data and look at the entire customer journey through analytics.
Yeah, true. From that perspective, indeed. And then even Google Optimize was mostly installed by some digital marketer with no statistical knowledge. And then maybe they even have a data science team over there that doesn't do anything with the data derived from those experiments.
Yeah.
So I fully agree with that. But to me, implementing experimentation with a tool like Google Optimize or every vendor out there by digital marketing, of course, it makes sense somehow. Optimize your campaigns, optimize your landing page, optimize your lead gen, whatsoever, and that you can do this independently from development, so you're not taking up development resources, and maybe you will break the landing page, but then hopefully the landing page is on a different subdomain or whatsoever, so it doesn't really matter. That kind of makes sense, but in the end, we are not into conversion optimization experiment. We are there for better decision making.
Yeah.
We need to support the company in making better decisions, because if you just make decisions on gut feel, some people are lucky, and at some point they even start believing that they're really good, and then the trouble comes in. But you can be lucky, and of course you can use user interviews or feedback data, survey data. It has a higher trustworthiness on making decisions based on that than to make it on expert opinions. And the more you climb up, then you have data and cohorts, and so it gives you more proof on potential causality when you make decisions. So we are in the business of better decision making and delivering data and delivering experimentation results or whatsoever. It's all about better decision making in those companies, and to decentralize also the decision making.
But isn't it about time then to ditch the whole CRO label?
Don't do this to him.
Just optimizing a metric. Why not decision-making optimization, experimentation culture optimization? Let's create
big organizational growth thing.
Yes.
Yeah. We've been to this discussion so many times, and luckily for you, you are present, Simo, at a lot of online channels to give your answers to a large part of the community. Luckily for you, you have never been part of discussions on the name conversion rate optimization, conversion optimization.
The Antichrist of CRO.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point I said CRO is dead. I said CRO jobs will die, because it doesn't make sense to have a CRO specialist in your company. You have product people, designers, developers, copywriters, and so on, and they all have an optimization mindset, but it doesn't make sense to have a dedicated CRO specialist. Now, the name sucks, but search engine optimization also sucks.
Yes, it does.
So it's,
It does.
but it's there. People know what it is, and it gets you to fun places, because we went on a company retreat to the lovely country of Croatia, which is CRO, and they have this amazing city which is called Split.
Yeah. So, that's pretty.
There you go.
Yeah. No, so the name is wrong. And even with experimentation, because more people are shifting to experimentation, but experimentation for C-level people or vice presidents whatsoever is something different than A/B testing. It's more from the innovation point of view to run business experiments. So also not the right name. And CRO is also the chief revenue officer. So it totally doesn't make sense. But so maybe insights-driven companies, better decision-making companies. Yeah. Luckily for me, I only take on clients that have the mindsets and are really focusing on building better decision making. So I won't have to convince them anymore that this is needed.
I think that many products and services are trying to distance themselves from the term as well. Like Conductrix is a decision making platform. It's a survey platform. It's no longer just, or it probably never was, a CRO tool. It's just, if you want to sell your product with SEO, then you have to have the CRO somewhere in the name. That's a horrible acronym mess, but it is what it is. I think it's always like when we start debating what something is called, we're already way past the saturation point of that industry.
Yeah, and of course, this is such a siloed discussion.
Yeah, it is.
Also,
it's a fun way to kill the time.
Yeah, true. Because the fun thing is when the industry is growing and optimization grew a lot, you suddenly become a more siloed community where you have all these discussions in between the community on the name and the approach, and some people suddenly call themselves influencers, and some people say you're not an influencer, and then they post something online, and you get all this hate speech about. But this is only within the community, and so doesn't make sense, because Measure Slack is amazing because my background is analytics, so I still like to lurk around there and sometimes give some answers. But you also have an amazing product Slack, Mind to Product, which is for product owners.
Oh, cool.
They have a 20,000 people Slack, and there are only like 5 people that know about experimentation. I'm like, guys, of course we should have our own little community whatsoever, but you should join those other communities where they are responsible for decision making and help them out with your thoughts on data whatsoever, because we're creating our own silos and then we're starting having internal discussions. We're becoming an old-fashioned enterprise company with too many meetings. Yeah.
You should share the link if this is a open
Yes, it is.
community.
Mind the Product was a separate community. They have this amazing conference in London for product owners also, but they got bought, I think, by a software vendor, but the software vendor decided to open up everything, so all their courses are now for free. Of course, they did this because they are scared the community runs off if a software vendor buys the community, but the Slack is still pretty active.
And there's the test and learn community as well, right?
Yeah, Kelly Wortham is running a dedicated test and learn community on Slack, which is still a nice small group. So it's something I would not recommend to people outside of dedicated experimentation to join. But if you are into experimentation, yes, you should really join it. There is a testing channel within the Measure Slack, but this separate group test and learn community looking way broader at experimentation. But I really recommend to join groups outside of your own comfort zone to see what's going on there. Because in the end, if our business is helping organizations to make better decisions, then we have to deal with everyone. So we need to understand how they are thinking and what they are worrying about and so on.
Yeah. And I think that's a life lesson that many people haven't. I completely understand it. Juliana, you're you've already entered this with a bang, this whole industry, but you've probably already noticed that there's so many different things to learn. There's just signals everywhere. And it's such a mess. And of course, we have to focus on what we know best and what we love best before we can open ourselves to other things. But it sounds to me like experimentation is one of those really multidisciplinary things where you have to open yourself. You have to open yourself up to product, to service, to UI, to UX, to analytics, to web design, to CSS selectors, to regular expressions, and statistics, psychology.
Statistics.
Yeah, and every time I've been to one of your conferences, or as in like a CRO industry conference, the range of speakers, what they're talking about, it's crazy. There's only 1 or 2 who are actually talking about like A/B testing, but then you have like psychologists, you have human behavior consultant, you have this amazing mix of.
True. It's also why I'm at the forefront of splitting my own conference in 2 parts, because it used to be Conversion Hotel, then it became the conference formerly known as Conversion Hotel, because we had this identity crisis with the name Conversion, but couldn't come up with a new name. I now see I need to split this between Experimentation Island and the old-fashioned Conversion Hotel, because there's a large group of people really working on product experimentation, embedding this in the engineering pipeline, larger companies, better decision-making, quite a high mature level of thinking power. And then you have all these from SMBs to almost enterprise companies that are just there to optimize conversions, understanding user behavior. They need consumer psychology, they need research, and those kind of things to really understand what's going on. That's almost like the behavioral lab compared to engineering experimentation inside companies. And these are really 2 separate things. Those 2 don't mix. They mix, but if you then go to a conference where only half of the talks is interesting to you, it doesn't really make sense. So I think it will split out into 2 events at some point.
So it sounds like you are splitting a population into 2 groups, and you're comparing the results after achieving statistical significance. Am I right? Am I hearing this correctly? You're running an experiment on your own conference?
Experimentation conference.
Yeah, but it is not proper A/B testing. This is just trying, failing, and learning, and just look at data. But that data is mostly focused on happiness of users and happiness of myself.
That sounds like what I want experimentation culture to be. Like not rigorous testing with a certain framework, but actually just having a real life use case behind it and then observing the happiness result. That sounds like a beautiful way to do it.
But Tan, for how many years have you been doing it? Because I think when we met at Superweek, you told me that this is anniversary, right? This year.
This is the 10th edition. We started in 2014 with this conference. Yeah.
So what can people expect this year from?
The challenge upon me to invite 1 speaker for every year we had. But I still want to have a inclusive group of speakers, right balance between HC sides, right balance between more abstract, more pragmatic, right balance between gender, everything should be in balance. So I started with the ones I really wanted to have because they're really seen as important in this specific small community. And then I started puzzling. and I'm almost there. I now have 8 out of 10. I'm still waiting for the final 2, and then I have my speakers, and we'll have 1 speaker for every year we've had. So it's a fun challenge. Like I said, I love solving puzzles. And of course, some speakers say no because they have some other things they have to do. So it will be a big reunion. And I think even for some speakers, it will be even one of the final presentations they do for the industry, because the group of speakers I started with back in 2014 was the group of speakers that I've learned about and met at events throughout the world in the years before that. So these people were already speaking in 2010, 2011, 2012.
I'm curious.
These were like early moving in the industry, and they also grow to different directions and see this as an interesting opportunity to give their final presentation to the industry and then move on.
So we're going to probably start wrapping up soon, but it's a good time to have a shout out. Like, when is Conversion Hotel and when are you going to release the tickets?
The event is November 17, 18, 19 from the back of my head. It's always the weekend before Thanksgiving US.
And it's an island near Amsterdam?
Yeah, if you are taking the shuttle, it's like 1.5 hour, including the ferry from Amsterdam Airport up north. And it's an island indeed. The ticket sales, the first batch will start, I think, in 2 or 3 weeks from now. But these are just for the people that have been there before. Because we sell them in batches. We have 25% tickets for new people that never been to the event, 25% for recurring, 25% not being a conversion specialist or manager. So something else, and 25% foreign people to get the right balance. And probably some people will fit multiple buckets, but this is how we try to sell the tickets, to also have a quality group of people attending and not just conversion specialists, male from the Netherlands, which is like not inclusive. But if you sign up, I think on the website there must be a link to the ticket release email group. So if you sign up, then you will be notified when there is a batch. And what I've learned, tickets are being mostly sold out in 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So you have time. It's not like Measurecamp where you have 2 seconds, but you have 20 minutes to register yourself and then they're gone.
We'll certainly add those to the video notes.
Oh yeah, you will find them in the YouTube description or on the podcast notes, and probably this year, if Doug Hall and Julian are listening to the call, maybe they get Juliana at Conversion Hotel this year.
Let's start a campaign. Get Juliana to Conversion.
Yeah, I've been wanting to go there, and I just love your energy, Ton. I love meeting with you. Every time I meet with you, you're my therapist, because like I get to talk to you about things I can talk to nobody else. It's like, and I just want to say that I really appreciate how generous you have been with me from ever since I met you and all the feedback. You're such a nice person, and it's always good to see you. And thank you for coming today. This was really great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, and Juliana. You are doing an amazing job. You entered the industry already some more years ago. We already met at OmniConvert back then. But you're getting there. I'm really happy to have you with this one.
I know. We'll just have to catch up.
That's a really hard thing to do when you are. Well, maybe I need to do.
There you go.
So where can people find you? What's the best way to follow you online?
I think nowadays it's LinkedIn. That's something that Juliana was telling me already for a year ago. You need to publish more on LinkedIn, which I started doing. I'm not publishing like every day, but like once a week. And it's fascinating because it feels like the old days of blogging, that people are actually responding and giving you feedback, and you can release stuff that's not finished and ask for questions. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn, Ton Wesseling, but I'm around. Just type in my name on Google and you will find me. Yeah. I'll also be at Conversion Boost in March in Denmark, Copenhagen, where I'm launching the Experimentation Culture Award. I'll be at Andres Maurice Conference, Growth Marketing Summit, presenting also in June. Weblinks Wednesday, Copenhagen in April. There's lots of fun stuff coming up. Luckily, we stopped doing these remote things.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to see people again and forget that there ever was a pandemic, which is easy to forget.
Yes, that's really easy to forget.
Even though it's still raging out there.
So I've learned. The psychologist in our company always told me, like, okay, once this is over, it will be out of your system really soon.
Except if you have long COVID, then it's going to stay in your system for a while.
Yeah, true.
And it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so much for taking the time. And as always, you're an inspiration. That's why we talked so much about your enthusiasm, because it's rubbing off. I feel enthusiastic again about life and everything. So thank you so much.
Good. Thank you. Oh, that's good to hear. That makes me a happy person and gives me energy for the rest of this day.
For sure.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening and watching. You'll find a bunch of links in the description, and see you guys next time.